Hi everybody, I'm using this screencast to go over the book code from chapter 12, which is about flex and the flex model and flex boxes and containers. So what I'm going to do is try to reduce the 60 or so scripts that our author gives you into a digestible chunk that just shows the properties and values of the ones most commonly used. And in this case, we're going to show how the display of flex needs to be applied to the parent element of whatever you're doing, whatever you plan to flex. And what that means is a grid that you give size to that will react accordingly. So the big picture is this. When I move this, you see the content that stays the same element all the way through. Now, one thing immediately you notice is that flex right here has a fixed width, and because it's not flexed in line, it does not wrap or contain the elements. So quite often you'll see display inline flex just to maintain the content inside. So that's this div right here where you can see, in this case, div inline flex. So here's some content for that div. We also see a regular flex and another inline flex inside with two longer lines. They convey the same meaning. Flex itself, we'll go to the flex div just so you can see it, and in here you don't see a width, do you? But you do see inside here, you see margins and padding, still without width. It's about holding content, and when we start to reduce, it has a responsive feel to it. But what's important is the columns maintain the same length, the same height for each of these, and by doing that we've done display flex only, wrapped it around a few divs, and we see by doing div flex we get that, but the dotted border which is on the div itself will eventually end up reducing if it's not given a proper width. But display flex is the important part of this, and that you would name it your wrapper of whatever you wanted to be flexible with that flex value on the property. Now in this case, this is a nav that has a display flex. And if you look here, display flex here, you can see that the things move to maintain contact, to maintain the height. So contact us wrapped. It wrapped, and so the background height was flexible. It adapted to that height of the box. So in a nutshell, that's what flex does. Now, our book's author gives us several examples of full layouts, which I really appreciate. I think it's really good and sort of mimics this week's homework as well. So right now we have a home page that has a header, nav, a main, and the main inside here has 3 articles. What's important is that we have a growth here. Now the 33% says that we're going to go with a 3-column layout. The first digit is the grow, the second is the shrink. So they're all going to grow and shrink at the same level. And you can alter those to your heart's content and feel good about them. So basically we can shrink it all the way down because it's a 1-to-1. Now it is not necessarily responsive because we wouldn't want this kind of nav or this kind of definitely main content in mobile. We'd want to add a media query that has that would remove that flex and make it a width of 100%. But this is a flex layout. So you see that no matter what, the columns maintain the same height regardless of the content. So as we go through, this is an example of a magic layout, and you see that when I open this very wide, it is 6 columns wide. So overall it's 11 columns, and you see this column over here because it is a flex system. Now in this case the flex has to be applied to the wrapper again, and we have several divs with items and a couple that are commented out in fact, and you can see that our flex is a grow and shrink of 1. Now you can feel free to alter these and maybe do a 2 and a 1, or a 2 and a 2, or a 3 even. You see that the 3 here, we'll lower that here, we'll do 3, 4, and you see that now we have this 6 above and it defaulted to its original. So if we do 1 and 1, that's the way it should be. Now if we start minimizing this, you'll see that now we have 5, 5, and 1. So we're maintaining our grid system. And if you look at the main, the wrapper itself, it has no width. It just says flex wrap. So all it's doing is containing elements inside. Remember, there are 11 boxes here, so now when I go like this and we start to go down, we still have 4, 4, and 3. And we can go all the way to the edge because it's a 1 and 1, a grow and a shrink. And now look what we have, a nice 2-column layout. And this eventually we get to 1. Of course, we'd have to div auto center. So this is a super nice layout that's done with relatively minimal CSS. In fact, I'll view the source code on this thing because you're going to want to see it. And to appreciate how little, you see we have body, main, display, flex. That's the total wrapper, and the nav even has a flex. So it's about gridding without width, and the content inside dictates the width. But when we have a flex wrap like this, you can see that it does a nice wrap. We're wrapping the content here. So, I like the idea of you reading chapter 12. Chapter 11 is about positioning. There's another video on that. But this is showing you the best properties. So this right here is flex direction row and flex direction row reverse. So let's look at the HTML here. And you will see that row reverse, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but since we have row reverse, it is in the opposite order. And the book goes into some Hebrew examples, which is a right to left language, and how the flex can work with non-Western world content, any kind of right to left content, just by using flex direction row reverse. And this is right here, flex direction column and flex direction column reverse. Now as we go through this, we see more layouts. So in this case, I'm going to inspect once more, and we can see our main obviously is flex. You can see that we go body, name, main article, all of them are flexed. And in this case, I can go ahead and uncomment this, and you see that it went from nothing to 1, 1, and 33%, which is a grow and shrink of 1, and then 3 columns. So like right here, I can do 25%, and I only have 3 columns at this level, so it should be 33 to begin with. But let's refresh this again, and you can see the articles in question, like right now, is 1, 1, and 2, and that's merely because of the content. But when we flex it out and we do 1, 1, now we have 3 equal width columns, and I can scrunch this down a little bit. You see that it goes down to 3 columns all the way, and at this point you can see our wrap and our borders override, so that's when we need our media queries. So these are some really good handy examples for you. So this script is showing you the flex wrap property, and right now we have no wrap, and that's why our stuff is overlapping here. So if I inspect, you can see that right now, if I did a wrap like that, it wraps perfectly. So no wrap versus wrap, and this is a wrap reverse where it maintains its wrap, but you see the values of the second column are above the bottom column, so it just flips it. But the wrap and no wrap are the things you want to commit to memory, because that's how we can keep everything inside their collective boxes. Now this is about flex flow, and in this case we have a flex row, which is, you can have row or column, and it has no wrap at all, and this is flex row wrap. So and this is wrap reverse. So most of these flex properties have a reverse, and they have a wrap and a no wrap. And generally, it's rare that you would have no wrap, and it's very rare that you would have wrap reverse. So this is a fun script about justification. This is one of the major properties that are part of the flex model. It's called justify content. And if I make my content here, I can actually, I can comment out this right here. Now it's flex start. So all of these containers are flex start. Now I can come back and we can play a little bit, and we can do flex end now, and you will see there will be a big difference. So now everything's on the side. So flex end is all part of justification of interior contents. And it's not just text, it's the divs inside, the div containers. So in this case, I'm going to comment out my center, and it's going to do exactly what you think. It centers every container. Now the space around, space between, and space evenly are a little bit puzzling, but you've got to just try it out and see. For example, I'm doing space around. There's, let's make sure that we have all this stuff here. So that's space around, and you can see that they basically will align horizontally throughout. And down here I can do space between while still commenting out the other. And space between. Don't you just love the console? Now you see the space between is justified with the boxes at the end. So, and now we can just evenly space them as well. And that's an example of all 6 properties of justified content, which is why I take the time to do these videos, because it's a basically over. Now we have, see, everything's the same. Space, 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 space. They're all spaced evenly. So that's how we can justify any content inside our flex model. Almost there, folks. So this is examples of aligned self, and you can see flex start here. So we're aligning the 2 right here, so it's 2. You see flex start. This is flex end, align self, flex end, self center, and baseline, which is the top. And this is both stretch and auto, because it's stretching all the way across, and it's automatically showing the height. So there's about maybe 6 properties that I think you guys should know. This is how to deal with the sides, which I've had a few students ask me about how to deal with the sides and whether they actually belong on quote-unquote the side. And generally they do, because that's the semantic meaning of it, but it's more about conveying the content inside. So right now this is a flex model. It's in a side. If I go here and uncheck the flex, you'll see there's no wrap at all. And basically when I reduce the size of this, you'll see it'll act just like a grid system. So we're doing the same flex minimification. I don't know how helpful that is for you, but it shows you can apply the flex to any parent element, and all the things inside will behave in that flexible status. Now this is about flex wrapping again. I've already gone over this in one other slide, but you can see how important it is to throw a wrap on here. And it goes from, all the way down to 1 column by doing a flex wrap. And if I look at the bottom one, which is the one I think we're interested in because it behaves well, we can see flex wrap with no property of 1, 0 or anything like that. No grow or shrink. It's basically even by default and automatically wrapped. And once again, we do this. And that should be enough to sell you on how we can do a responsive layout partially. You don't want to be tied to this completely. You want to be able to write media queries inside, but this is a good way to go. And the next few scripts will discuss the grow and the shrink. So if I go here like this and you see flex grow 0, and we go and we throw a 1 on there, whoops, 1, you can see that flex grow 1 is this guy right here, which is evident in the next one. So this is 3, meaning no matter how big it is, it's going to be 3 times the width of the other one. And it's not wrapping, but that's okay. This is definitely to show the growth of each one. So let's go to, and the reason why this is 0.5, 0.5, and 1.5, because it's all proportion. The fact is that this is 1/3 of that. So this is not a misprint. It's just that you can apply any value to it. Now this is about the flex shrink, and this means basically that when we have our layout, the shrink will be smaller if it's 1. It'll shrink to 1 more size than this, and that's, you see, this would be 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. So this is 1 here. So take a good look at this, because like something like 0.75, you see it's still three times the 0.25, and this is a flex without a wrap, with a shrink all the way, with no wrap at all. So the grow and the shrink is something you want to get the hang of. I would definitely consult the video in this lesson folder that has the Flexbox full layout. This is a great example of that. It's a flex shrink with the home page, and you can see when we get to the low level, it turns into a beautiful responsive 1-column layout. And the reason it's doing that is because it's got a media query here that controls its flex. So when we have min width 500, we get flex grow of 1, a flex shrink of 2. But when we get to the lower level, which is right here, are we there yet? There we go. At this point, we would get our removal of that flex. So let's take a good look at the code on this, and specifically the media queries. We've got our min width, but our mobile first is this, which this is the above the 500 where it's flex with a different, see the nav switches to a 200 pixel width, which is what we want. That's why you see the nav over here. But when we go to this, we can see flex direction column, and that's why by default, and we'll look at the width on this, once it hits 500, the nav becomes one column right there. So this is a nice layout for you if you want to replicate a decent responsive style website. But I would caution you and say that yes, you do need to have a media query in here to get that down perfect. Alright, so this is about flex basis, and flex basis content, if you just have the content value, it'll be equal. So we can take a good look at this. There's only a couple more here, but I do absolutely love the flex box. It was a game changer when it came out. Now see how flex basis is auto here? And we can see that that's this top element. I'll do this first. And you'll see that our article div is there, and the flex basis auto here, here, and here. They're all automatic, but the content itself is changed subtly. So when we go and open this section, we'll see the bold tag inside there, but we see box size and content box to keep the content, and we see the flex basis automatic. The flex basis property is pretty interesting because it's used to keep everything pretty much percent. Like this is a great example of it in use. 70%, 80%, and whatever's left in the middle is going to be that fix. So most of the grids you see, most of the flex containers are going to have unique columns. So they'll have, two asides, maybe one left, one right, content in the middle. It's all about the flow in the middle. So that's why something like this is so important. You see the content in the middle has a different background color. And that's because right here we see flex auto inside the div. So anyway, that's the flex basis. It's underrated, not used that much, but here's actually the second script for that, which is about how the different values it can take as far as widths. They can be pixels fixed. They can be auto with widths that are 2, 3, and 4. You see how this is bigger? Of course, it's not 2,000 pixels. We see that with our own eyes. But the fact is, this could be 20 pixels, 30 pixels, and 40 pixels. It's the same fixed base. As long as it's flex basis auto, it'll stay within its parent element. That's the point. So only a couple more on this, and this is about the order. And if you take a good look at the other flex video in this package, you'll see where we control the header and footer and reverse their order. But right now, if we inspect this element, you're going to see some fun. There should be an order tag in here. Now we got this in. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's our order plus 4, 1 and order minus 1, and that's why nth of type 6 and 7 is a little bit off. See 6 and 7, and that's where we make them minus 1 and 1. So ordering is sort of fun, and this is an example where we can order inside. So I'm going to take another good look at this one. And actually the source code is a little bit easier when you're looking at order. But I realize these videos can get kind of... okay, so 3n minus 1 and 3n plus 1 is 3 times the number plus that section. So we got all of these values, 3, 6, 9, and 12, and those just happen to have a different background color as well. And those are basically opposites of 3 have background... multiples of 3 minus 1 and multiples of 3 plus 1 have different background colors, and that's how we're targeting those with the order. So that's kind of complicated, but the fact is that we can have order applied to anything, even navigation. And this is the last script I'll show you, where you see contact us is going to be at the end. And again, I should focus on the CSS in here so we can see it all. I'm going to look at page source real quick. If I can, I'm going to actually there we go. There's view page source. So here we can see our order for anything active is -1, which means we can let's make sure that we have this section here. There we are. And you can see the class active is blog, and blog is at the front. So we can actually control that with a hover. Not that we would ever do that, but the class active itself is going to be wherever you put it. So that means that you could alter or apply CSS as well, which you see often in navigation. Anyway, we just went through a lot. You don't have to memorize it. I would say just take the attached code. If you're scanning the textbook, this can help you. I do think when you look at full layouts, it'll make a little more sense. I think you definitely need to practice with the grow and shrink after each flex declaration so you get an idea of what happens. And it's going to take a little bit of practice and a little bit of time, but this coupled with the responsive design will really add to your game and your efficiency.